Welcome to Hearths of Myths. The story of the gods does not begin with a word. It does not begin with a commandment, nor with a gentle molding of clay. In the deep, rhythmic memory of the Nile Valley, before the temples rose from the silt, and before the first pharaoh donned the double crown, the story begins with a sound. It is a sound that tears through the pre-dawn silence, a sound that is both a scream of terror and a shout of ecstasy. It is the screech of the baboon. To understand Babi, the bull of the baboons, the great white one, who stands at the chaotic edges of the ordered world, one must first understand the terror of the sunrise. Imagine the primeval landscape of Egypt, long before it was named Egypt. Imagine the Zep Tepi, the first time, when the waters of Nun began to recede, leaving behind mounds of fertile black mud. The world is shrouded in absolute darkness. It is a darkness that is heavy, suffocating, and teeming with unformed potential. In this darkness, there is no guarantee that the light will return. The sun, the great god Ra, is currently battling his way through the winding waterways of the netherworld, fighting off the serpent of chaos, Apophis. The entire cosmos holds its breath. Will the sun rise? Or will the serpent swallow the solar bark, plunging existence back into the inert waters of non-existence? On the eastern horizon, atop the jagged cliffs of the Red Land, the Deshret, the desert of chaos, silence reigns. But as the faintest, almost imperceptible graying touches the edge of the sky, shapes begin to stir among the rocks. They are hunched, powerful figures, their fur matted with the dust of the ancient earth. They are the Hamadryas baboons. To the modern eye, they are animals, primates driven by instinct. But to the ancient mind, looking out from the safety of the fertile valley, these creatures possess a secret knowledge. They are the first to know. Before the human eye can detect the first ray of the sun, the baboons sense the approach of the god. A ripple of energy passes through the troop. The alpha male, the dominant force, rises on his hind legs. He raises his hands, palms open, facing the east. And then he screams. It is a high-pitched, chattering roar that echoes off the canyon walls. It is followed by another and another, until the entire eastern horizon is vibrating with the cacophony of the Hetem, the sacred baboons. They jump, they chatter, they slap their thighs in a frenzy of agitation. To the ancient Egyptians, this was not animal behavior. This was religion. This was the first liturgy. The baboons were not screaming in hunger or aggression. They were praying. They were the Eastern souls, the spirits of the ancestors who had taken form to welcome the Creator. They were standing on their hind legs to lift their hands in adoration, the gesture of Henu, of praise. They were shouting to wake the sleeping world, to announce that Ra had defeated the serpent, that order, Ma'at, had triumphed for one more day. And amidst this chorus of screeching prophets, there is one figure who dominates the rest. He is not merely a baboon. He is the concept of the baboon magnified to a cosmic scale. He is the alpha of alphas. He is the virility that drives the troop, the violence that protects the territory, and the raw, unbridled life force that greets the sun. He is Babi. Babi is not a god of quiet contemplation. He is not a scribe sitting silently with a reed pen like his cousin Thoth. Thoth is the baboon of the moon, of wisdom, of writing, of cool silver light. Babi is the baboon of the sun, of blood, of muscle, of the searing heat of the dawn. He is the bull of the baboons, a title that links him to the ultimate symbol of masculine potency in the ancient world. But unlike the Apis bull, who is heavy and earth-bound, Babi is agile, frantic, and dangerous. His origins lie deep in the pre-dynastic period, in the time when the gods were raw forces of nature, rather than polished anthropomorphic figures. In the earliest ivory labels found in the tombs of Abydos, we see the baboon standing guard. He is the hedge-ware, the Great White One. This title refers to the silvery gray fur of the mature Hamadryas male, which shines like limestone in the desert sun. Over centuries, this Great White One coalesced into the specific personality of Babi. Why was Babi necessary? Why did the Egyptians, a people obsessed with order and balance, venerate a god who looked like a chaotic, screaming beast? Because creation is violent. Birth is bloody. The sunrise is not a peaceful event. It is an explosion of energy that burns away the darkness. Ra needs more than just magic to be reborn. He needs strength. He needs the raw, animalistic drive to exist. Babi represents that drive. He is the libido of the cosmos. When the baboons screech at the dawn, they are doing something else, something that the priests observed with fascination. As the sun warms their bodies, the male baboons become physically aroused. To the Egyptians, this was not a crude biological function. It was a divine sign. It meant that the sun's rays contained the power of generation. The sun was impregnating the world with life, and Babi was the vessel of that potency. His phallus was not just an organ, it was a theological symbol. It was the bolt that locked and unlocked the doors of heaven. This connection between the baboon and the sun establishes Babi as a solar deity, a companion of Ra. But he is a dangerous companion. He is the aggression that can turn on you if you are not careful. In the pyramid texts, the oldest religious literature in the world, carved into the stone walls of Saqqara, the king seeks to identify himself with Babi. The king knows that to survive the journey to the afterlife, he cannot be meek. The afterlife is full of demons, gatekeepers, and executioners. To pass through, the king must become the bull of the baboons. My phallus is the phallus of Babi, the king declares in the ancient spells. This is not a statement of vulgarity. It is a spell of survival. The deceased king is claiming the creative power of the god. He is saying, I have the power to create myself anew. I have the potency to generate life even in the realm of the dead. Without the power of Babi, the soul is impotent, unable to be reborn, doomed to fade into the gray nothingness of inertia. Babi's realm is the wild frontier. He dwells in the Red Land, the desert that borders the fertile Black Land. This geography is crucial to his character. The Black Land is safe, cultivated, ruled by Osiris and Horus. The Red Land is the domain of Set, of storms, and of Babi. It is the place where the chaotic forces dwell. Yet, the sun must cross the Red Land to reach the valley. The sunrise comes from the desert. Therefore, the chaos of Babi is the gateway to the order of Ra. In the early dynasties, before the pantheon was rigidly structured, Babi was a major power. We find his name invoked in spells to ward off snakes and scorpions. The logic is simple. Babi is a killer. Baboons in the wild are formidable predators when cornered. They have canine teeth that rival those of leopards. They are intelligent, organized, and ruthless. If you are threatened by the venomous creatures of the desert, you do not call upon a gentle god. You call upon the screeching, tearing fury of the Great White One. You ask Babi to tear the serpent to pieces, just as the solar baboons tear apart the shadows of the night. But Babi is not merely a bodyguard. He is an elder god, one who remembers the time before human rules. He represents the bow of the ancestors. In Egyptian theology, the bow are the manifestations of power, the souls that can interact with the physical world. The baboons were believed to be the vessels for the spirits of the pre-dynastic kings, the souls of Nekhen and the souls of Pi. When the pharaoh participated in the said festival, the Jubilee of Renewal, he would perform a dance. He would run a course to prove his fitness, and watching him, depicted in rows on the temple walls, were the ancestors. But they were not depicted as men. They were depicted as baboons. Babi is the chieftain of these ancestors. He watches the king with critical, glowing red eyes. If the king is weak, if he cannot uphold Ma'at, Babi will not support him. Babi demands strength. This is why he is often associated with the Lake of Fire in the later myths, a place of destruction for the weak and rejuvenation for the strong. But before we reach the fires of the deep underworld, we must understand the nature of the baboon's wisdom. It is a mistake to think of Babi as mindless. His wisdom is different from Thoth's. Thoth's wisdom is the wisdom of the library, of the stars plotted on a chart, of the precise measurement of the cubit. Babi's wisdom is the wisdom of the blood. It is the knowledge of when to strike, when to scream, and when to mate. It is the wisdom of the body. The Egyptians knew that a human being is composed of different parts. The Ka, life force. The Ba, personality. The Ak, transfigured spirit. Babi rules over the physical Kasi, the vessel that holds the divine spark. He ensures that the vessel is strong enough to contain the fire of Ra. As the sun fully clears the horizon, bathing the Nile in gold, the screeching of the baboons subsides. They descend from the rocks to forage, to groom, to live. But the echo of their morning prayer remains. The sky has been opened. The doors of the horizon have been unbolted. And who is the bolt? Who is the mechanism that keeps the sky from crashing down or staying forever shut? It is Babi. The imagery of the bolt is central to Babi's function in the celestial architecture. The ancient Egyptians imagined the sky as a massive iron plate, or sometimes as the belly of the cow goddess Nut. This sky had gates, portals through which the sun boat, the Manjet, had to pass. These gates were not held shut by simple wood or bronze. They were held shut by the power of the gods. The bolt of Babi is a metaphor for the strength required to move the heavens. It implies that the movement of the cosmos is not automatic. It requires effort. It requires a muscular, virile force to push the day forward. If Babi were to withhold his strength, the doors would remain shut. The sun would remain trapped in the Duat. Eternal night would fall, and the enemies of Ra would triumph. Thus, every morning is a negotiation with Babi. Every morning, the cosmos must prove it is worthy of his strength. This is why the priests in the temples of Heliopolis and Hermopolis would chant hymns to the dancing baboons at dawn. They were feeding Babi with words, sustaining his energy, so he would continue to hold the gates open. But Babi is complex. He is not always benevolent. His aggression is a double-edged sword. In the myths where the Eye of Ra, the goddess Sekhmet, or Tefnut, runs away to the desert in a rage. She takes the form of a lioness. Who are her companions in the wilderness? The baboons. They are the courtiers of the angry goddess. Babi is at home in this company. He understands the rage of the female solar power. He does not try to tame her, he runs with her. He is the male counterpart to the uncontrolled solar fury of Sekhmet. There is a dark humor to Babi as well, a trickster element that is often overlooked. Baboons are thieves. They steal fruit, they mock travelers, they create chaos. Babi embodies this disruptive energy. In the divine tribunal, he is the one who speaks the uncomfortable truth, the one who insults the other gods to test their composure. He is the jester in the court of Osiris, but a jester who can rip your throat out. He reminds the gods that beneath their gold and lapis lazuli, they are forces of nature. As we look deeper into the prehistory of Babi, we see his connection to the Kenmet, the dark periods. The Egyptians feared the dark, but they respected it as the place of germination. A seed must be buried in the dark earth to grow. A child grows in the darkness of the womb. Babi is the lord of this dark fertility. He is the guardian of the mysteries of reproduction. In a society where lineage and inheritance were everything, where the survival of the name depended on the birth of a son, Babi was the god you whispered to in the privacy of the bedchamber. He is the bull of the baboons, because he monopolizes the females of his troop, ensuring that only the strongest genes are passed on. This Darwinian truth was obvious to the Egyptians. They saw that the strength of the troop depended on the strength of the patriarch. By worshipping Babi, they were worshipping the principle of genetic continuity, the survival of the fittest. The pharaoh, the ultimate patriarch of Egypt, had to be a bull. He had to be Babi. This identification becomes terrifyingly literal in the cannibal hymn of the pyramid texts. In this ancient, violent text, the deceased king hunts down the gods, kills them, and eats them to absorb their power. He has taken the hearts of the gods. He has eaten the red crown and swallowed the green one. In this frenzy of consumption, who aids the king? Who helps him hunt? It is the spirit of Babi. Babi is the one with the blood on his muzzle. He sanctions the king's dominance over the cosmos. He says, "Take what is yours. If you are strong enough to eat a god, then you are a god." This is the Babi of the Old Kingdom, a primal, ferocious solar entity who screams the sun into existence and empowers the king to dominate the afterlife. He is the screech at the edge of creation, the sound that shatters the silence of non-existence. He is the guarantee that life will be loud, messy, and enduring. But the sky is vast, and the sun does not stay on the horizon. As Ra ascends to the zenith, the nature of the journey changes. The physical sunrise gives way to the celestial mechanics of the day, and Babi's role shifts from the herald of the dawn to the keeper of the machinery of heaven. He becomes the bolt, the lock, and the key. In the high heavens, far above the desert rocks, there are doors that no mortal hand can touch. These are the doors of the sky, the Kenbet. They separate the world of the living from the deep currents of the celestial ocean. To pass through them requires more than just a password. It requires a physiological transformation. The soul must become something other than human. The ancient texts speak of a ladder to heaven. The king wishes to ascend to sit beside Ra. but the ladder is guarded. The rungs are perilous, and at the top of the ladder, waiting at the threshold of the imperishable stars, is the presence of Babi. He is not screaming now. He is watching. He is waiting to see if the traveler possesses the Heka, the magic, and the user, the strength, to enter the company of the gods. The phallus of Babi, mentioned in the utterances of Unas, is the lever of this transition. It is described in terms that merge anatomy with engineering. It is the sliding bolt of the door. To draw the bolt is a euphemism for the act of procreation, but also for the act of opening the way to the divine. Babi guards the virginity of the heavens. Only the rightful heir, the one who has mastered the self, can persuade Babi to draw back the bolt. This is the secret of the Baboon God. He is the barrier and the bridge. He is the one who keeps the unworthy out, but he is also the power that allows the worthy to enter. He is the opener of the ways in his own right, distinct from Anubis or Wepwawet. Anubis opens the paths of the cemetery. Wepwawet opens the paths of war. Babi opens the paths of biological and cosmic potency. As the sun climbs higher, leaving the red land behind, Babi's influence does not fade. It sinks deeper. It moves from the horizon to the very structure of the sky itself. The screeching has stopped, but the presence remains. The bull of the baboons is now prowling the celestial decks of the solar bark, watching the waters of the sky, waiting for the enemies of Ra to show their heads. The silence of the desert returns, but it is a different kind of silence now. It is the silence of a world that has been successfully jump-started. The engine of creation is running. The heart of the universe is beating, and the spark that ignited it was the cry of the Great White One. But the journey is far from over. The sun must set. The light must fail. And when Ra descends into the western horizon, into the throat of the earth, he will need Babi more than ever. For in the underworld, the rules of the day do not apply. In the underworld, you do not need a herald. You need a ferryman. You need a mast that can withstand the storms of the Winding Waterway. You need the unbreakable strength of the bull to navigate the river of death. And so, as the day turns, Babi prepares for his next transformation. He sheds the guise of the Dawn Herald and assumes the form of the structural pillar of the afterlife. He becomes the mast of the ferry. The screech at the edge of creation becomes the silent strength that holds the boat together in the dark. To ascend is to trespass. This is the fundamental truth of the Egyptian cosmos. The sky is not an open void, welcoming and free. It is a fortress. It is a sealed domain, an iron ceiling, a biyah, constructed to keep the chaotic waters of the Nun from crashing down and drowning the ordered world of the living. To leave the earth and enter the company of the gods is not a right. It is a conquest. And at the threshold of this conquest, barring the way with the weight of a mountain and the tension of a coiled spring, stands the mechanism of the gate. This mechanism is not made of bronze or wood. It is made of living, divine force. It is the bolt of the doors of heaven, and that bolt is Babi. We have left the horizon now. We have left the screeching dawn behind and climbed the ladder of the air to the zenith, to the very roof of the world. Here, the air is thin and cold. The blue of the sky hardens into the indigo of deep space. In this high, silent place, the architecture of the universe becomes visible. The Egyptians visualized the entrance to the celestial realm as a pair of massive double doors, the great doors of the sky. These doors are the boundary between the mortal and the immortal, between the realm of decay and the realm of the imperishable stars, the Ikemu Sek. These doors are locked. They must be locked. If they were open, the distinct separation between gods and men would dissolve, and the universe would collapse into a muddle of mixed natures. The lock that holds them is the definition of order. But the sun must pass. The king must pass. The cycle of renewal demands that the doors open once a day, and once a lifetime for the ascending soul. How do you open a door that weighs as much as the sky? You do not use a key, for a key is a tool of subtle manipulation. You use a bolt, a sliding bar of immense strength that must be drawn back with violent muscular effort. In the pyramid texts, carved with exquisite precision into the limestone of the royal tombs, the identity of this bolt is stated with shocking clarity. The bolt is the phallus of Babi. To the modern mind, this image might seem crude, perhaps even obscene. We are accustomed to separating the sacred from the biological, the divine from the sexual. But the ancient Egyptians suffered from no such dissociation. To them, the act of creation was the ultimate sacred act. The force that propels life forward, the biological drive that ensures the survival of the species, was not shameful. It was the very engine of divinity. The phallus was not merely a reproductive organ. It was a symbol of user, of power, of the ability to affect reality. It was the generative principle made flesh. Babi, the bull of the baboons, embodies this principle in its most concentrated, aggressive form. When the texts say that Babi is the bolt, they are saying that the virility of the god is the force that holds the cosmos together, and, paradoxically, the force that can pry it open. The sliding of the bolt is the act of engagement. Just as the phallus engages to create life, Babi engages with the architecture of the sky to create the opening for the sun. Imagine the scene described in the utterances of the Old Kingdom. The deceased king stands before the great doors. He is alone. The earth is far below him. He shouts to the keeper of the gate. He does not plead. He declares, "I am Babi," he cries. "I am the bull of the baboons. My phallus is the bolt of the doors." This is the magic of identification. The king is not asking Babi for permission. The king becomes Babi. He assumes the god's form, his thick gray fur, his bared teeth, his red glowing posterior, and most importantly, his unyielding potency. By becoming Babi, the king appropriates the strength needed to slide the bolt. He channels the primal libido of the alpha male to force the universe to yield to his will. Why the bull? The term Ka in Egyptian means both bull and life force. The bull is the one who leads the herd, the one who fertilizes the cows, the one who ensures the future. In a troop of baboons, the hierarchy is absolute. The alpha male is the bull. He has exclusive breeding rights. He is the genetic bottleneck through which the entire troop must pass. Babi is the cosmic alpha. He is the bull of the baboons, not because he looks like a bovine, but because he occupies the position of absolute dominance. This dominance is crucial because the afterlife is a place of potential impotence. Death is the ultimate loss of control. It is the cessation of movement, the cooling of the body, the stillness of the heart. The greatest fear of the Egyptian was not pain, but inertia. To be stopped, to be unable to move, to speak, to eat, to procreate. This state was called gered, inertness. It was the quality of the corpse. Babi is the cure for inertia. He is the anti-death. He is hyper-life. He is so alive, so brimming with testosterone and aggression, that death cannot touch him. When the deceased identifies with Babi, they are injecting themselves with the spiritual adrenaline. They are jump-starting their ghostly form. They are saying, "I am not a dead thing. I am the bull. I am the bolt. I am the force that opens." This connects Babi intimately with the myth of Osiris. Osiris is the lord of the dead, the mummified god, the one who was broken and put back together. Osiris is passive. He lies on his bier, waiting. He is the soil, the potential. But soil cannot grow wheat without a seed. Osiris cannot rule the Duat without a spark of life. Babi provides that spark. In some of the most esoteric and ancient traditions, Babi is described as the phallus of Osiris. This is a profound theological mystery. Osiris, the broken king, requires a surrogate, a manifestation of his lost power, to conceive his son Horus. Babi steps into this role. He represents the miraculous restoration of function. He is the power that allows the dead god to father the living avenger. Thus, Babi is the guardian of the lineage. He ensures that the cycle does not end with death. He ensures that the seed passes from the father to the son, bridging the gap of the grave. Without Babi, Osiris remains a corpse. With Babi, Osiris becomes a king. The Baboon God is the battery attached to the mummy, the surge of power that animates the static form. But let us return to the doors. The king, now wearing the mask of Babi, grabs the bolt. The texts describe the sound of the opening. It is a rumble like thunder, a grinding of celestial gears. The doors of the sky are opened for you. The doors of the firmament are thrown wide. The bolt slides back. The iron gates swing outward. And what lies beyond? The Winding Waterway, the celestial river upon which the stars sail. To enter this realm, one must be whole. The concept of wholeness in the afterlife is linked to the physical integrity of the body. The Egyptians went to great lengths to preserve the body through mummification, because they believed the spirit needed a physical anchor. But they also feared that magical enemies would steal parts of the body. There are spells in the Coffin Texts to prevent walking upside down, to prevent eating filth, and to prevent the stealing of the phallus. This specific fear, the theft of virility, was a major anxiety. If a demon stole your reproductive power, you could not be reborn. You would be cut off from the flow of eternity. Babi is the warden of this power. He protects the sexual integrity of the deceased, but he is also the threat. If you are unworthy, if you are weak, Babi himself will castrate you. He will strip you of your power and leave you as a hollow shell. This dual nature is typical of the Egyptian gods. They are the poison and the cure. Babi is the god of potency. so he is the only one who can grant it, and the only one who can take it away. The soul must approach him with extreme caution. You must flatter him. You must acknowledge his strength. You must say, "Hail to you, Babi, Lord of the Horizon. I have brought you the Eye of Horus. I have healed your eye so that you may heal my members." The offering of the Eye of Horus is symbolic of restoring order. Babi, being a creature of chaos and rage, is often depicted as having red eyes or inflamed eyes. This implies a state of permanent aggression, a fever of violence. By offering the Eye of Horus, the symbol of healing, math, and moonlight, the deceased soothes the savage god. They cool his rage just enough to negotiate passage, but not enough to extinguish his fire, for they need that fire to cross the dark waters ahead. The mechanics of the sky also involve the pillars of heaven. In Egyptian cosmology, the sky was held up by 4 pillars at the cardinal points. These pillars needed to be strong, unshakable. Babi is frequently associated with the stability of these pillars. His squat, muscular frame, his ability to sit immovable for hours, made him a natural symbol for a foundation stone. He is the Djed pillar in primate form, endurance personified. As the doors open and the king steps through, the atmosphere changes. We are no longer in the vertical ascent. We are now on the horizontal plane of the Milky Way. The field of reeds lies in the distance, but between the doors and the paradise lies the danger. The high place is not empty. It is populated by the imperishable ones, the stars that never set. These are spirits of immense power, cold and distant. To walk among them, one cannot be human. A human is soft, warm, vulnerable. A star is hard, cold, eternal. Babi is the bridge between these states. He is warm-blooded, yet he belongs to the gods. He has fur and blood, yet he creates the sunrise. He shows the king how to transmute his mortality into something durable. The magic of Babi is the magic of transformation through rage. There is a specific kind of magic called Heka. Heka is the underlying energy of the universe. It is not spells in the Harry Potter sense. It is authority. It is the ability to command. Babi has a specific flavor of Heka. It is Heka-ware, great magic, but it is raw. It is the magic of the berserker. When the king channels Babi, he is tapping into a pre-linguistic power. Thoth uses words to create. Ptah uses thought. Khnum uses clay. Babi uses noise and blood. He screams reality into submission. This is why the pyramid texts are so oral, so rhythmic. They are meant to be shouted. They are meant to mimic the power of the baboon's cry. The recitation is a weapon. O you who hate sleep, who hate exhaustion, stand up, take your power. These commands echo the alpha male, rousing the troop. There is also a solar geometry to Babi's role at the doors. The sun does not just pass through, it is born through the doors. The doors are the birth canal of Nut. Babi, as the phallus/bolt, acts as the inseminator, but also as the midwife. He ensures the passage is open. If the doors were to snap shut, the sun would be crushed. The crushing of the sun was a terrifying possibility during an eclipse. During an eclipse, the Egyptians believed the cosmic mechanism was failing. Babi had lost his grip. The bolt was slipping. In these moments of darkness, the people would cry out, They would bang drums. They would try to wake Babi. They needed the bull to reassert himself, to shove the bolt back into place and force the jaws of the sky open again. The return of the light was the triumph of Babi's strength over the closing void. The bolt of the doors of heaven is therefore not a static object. It is a constant, dynamic struggle. The sky wants to close. Gravity wants to pull everything down. Entropy wants to stop the movement. Babi is the force of anti-entropy. He is the exertion that keeps the roof up. He is the sweat on the brow of the universe. And what of the baboon's form itself? Why did the Egyptians choose this specific vessel for such a high purpose? It goes beyond the sunrise behavior. It is the anatomy. The mantle of fur on a hamadryas baboon looks like a cloak of silver. When he sits, he looks like a king on a throne. His face is dog-like, yet his hands are human. This hybrid nature makes him the perfect intermediary. He has the hands to manipulate the bolt, a human trait, but the teeth to defend it, an animal trait. He is the hedgeware, the great white one, shining in the upper atmosphere. In the darkness of the tomb, painted on the walls, the image of Babi is often colored green or white, colors of resurrection and purity. But his phallus is always red, red for blood, red for life, red for danger. The color coding tells the initiate everything they need to know. Trust the white fur. Respect the red power. As the king stands on the threshold, having successfully impersonated the god and drawn the bolt, he looks back one last time at the earth. He sees the tiny strip of green along the Nile. He sees the pyramids, the stone mountains he built to mirror the stars. He realizes that all of that, the stone, the gold, the incense, was just a preparation for this moment, the moment of becoming Babi. The doors are open. The bolt is drawn. The path is clear. But the path is water. Dark, swirling, celestial water. The Mr. NKH3, the Winding Waterway, stretches out before him, a ribbon of black obsidian stars, and waiting by the shore is a boat. It is a strange boat, patched and ancient. It has a ferryman who is blind and looks backward, and it has a mast. The mast is tall, straight, and unbending. It catches the wind of the netherworld, and as the king approaches the boat, he realizes with a jolt of recognition that the mast is not wood. The mast is the same force he just wielded. The mast is Babi. The god of the bolt has transformed into the god of the drive. The opener of the door becomes the propeller of the vessel. The static strength of the lock becomes the dynamic strength of the sail. The journey continues, not by walking, but by sailing. And to sail the waters of death, one needs a mast that can pierce the storms of chaos. One needs the bull of the baboons to stand tall in the center of the boat, defying the waves. We step now from the solid threshold of the gate onto the shifting planks of the ferry. The air changes from the cold crispness of the zenith to the damp, heavy mist of the river. The sound of the wind filling the sail is the sound of Babi breathing. The water laps against the hull, whispering the names of those who drowned, those who failed to open the door, those who had no bolt to draw. But we are safe. We have the bull. We have the mast. And the ferryman is waiting. The solid ground of the celestial threshold falls away. The bronze gates of the sky, having groaned open under the pressure of the bolt, now stand behind the traveler like the colossal pillars of a forgotten temple. Ahead, there is no earth, no desert, no familiar geography of the Nile Valley. There is only water. But this is not the water of the living. It is not the brown, silt-heavy flood that nourishes the fields of Egypt. It is black, obsidian dark, and stretches out into an infinity that the mind can barely comprehend. This is the Mr. NKH3, the Winding Waterway. It is the celestial river that mirrors the Nile, the chaotic fluid upon which the stars float like lilies. And to cross it is the most perilous undertaking of the soul. Standing on the banks of this impossible river, the deceased king realizes that his legs are useless here. The journey of walking is over. The journey of sailing begins. But there is no bridge. There is no ford. There is only the silence of the deep and the distant, rhythmic sound of a pole striking the water. A boat is approaching through the mist. It is not a graceful vessel of cedar and gold, like the royal barges of Thebes. It is a strange, patched-together craft, ancient and weathered, and the figure poling it is even stranger. He stands at the stern, facing backward. He does not look at where he is going. He looks at where he has been. This is Mahaf, the one who looks behind. He is the ferryman of the gods, the surly, reluctant guardian of the crossing. He is not a servant. He is a tester. He does not offer rides to anyone who asks. He demands knowledge. To step onto his ferry is to prove that you understand the anatomy of the universe. The king calls out to Mahaf. The ferryman ignores him. He claims he is asleep, or that the boat is broken, or that there are no oars. This is the first test of the river. The traveler must wake the ferryman not with noise, but with magic. And the magic required here is the magic of identification. The traveler must prove that the boat is not a collection of wood and rope, but a living entity composed of the bodies of the gods. "Tell me my name," the boat whispers. "Tell me the name of my parts." The king begins the recitation, a spell known from the Coffin Texts. He identifies the hull, the thwarts, the steering oar. He names the bailer as the hand of Isis. He names the ribs of the boat as the ribs of the consumer of shadows. But then comes the central question, the most important structural element of the vessel, the thing that rises from the center of the hull to catch the wind of the netherworld. "What is the mast?" the ferryman asks. The answer is the key to the crossing. The mast is the spine of the ship. It is the vertical axis that connects the water to the wind, the heavy keel to the driving sail. It must be rigid. It must be alive. It must be strong enough to withstand the gales of the Duat without snapping. The king, filled with the knowledge of Thoth and the power of the dawn, gives the answer that shakes the mist. The mast, the king declares, is the phallus of Babi. Here, the imagery of the Baboon God returns with startling, visceral power. We are no longer dealing with the bolt at the gate. We are dealing with the mast in the storm. Why Babi? Why is the reproductive organ of the alpha baboon equated with the central pole of the ferry? The answer lies in the Egyptian understanding of uprightness and drive. The mast is the symbol of the erect, unyielding force of life. In a world of chaos, where the water wants to swallow everything, the mast stands straight. It defies gravity. It defies the limpness of death. Babi, as the god of hyper-virility, represents the ultimate standing up. Just as the baboons stand on their hind legs to greet the sun, the mast stands up to catch the breath of the gods. By identifying the mast with Babi, the king is invoking a specific kind of structural integrity. He is saying that his vehicle, the boat of his soul, is powered by the raw, generative libido of the Great White One. It implies that the journey across the waters is an act of insemination. The boat is piercing the dark waters, driving forward to the field of reeds to plant the seed of the resurrected spirit. This is not a passive sailing trip. It is an aggressive act of transport. The wind that fills the sail is the breath of life, but the mast that holds the sail is the strength of Babi. Without this strength, the sail would collapse. The boat would drift. The soul would be lost in the currents of inertia. Mahaf, hearing the correct answer, grunts in approval. He brings the ferry to the shore. The king steps aboard. But as he grips the gunwale, he feels the wood pulsing. This is a living ship. And towering above him, replacing the cedar pole he expected, is the presence of Babi. The mast hums with power. It is red, pulsating, alive. It is the anchor of the king's confidence. As the ferry pushes off into the black water, the shore fades. The mist closes in. The silence is broken only by the lapping of the waves against the hull. But this water is treacherous. It is inhabited. The Egyptians believed that the waterways of the afterlife were teeming with neeters, hostile entities, fishermen of the deep, catchers of souls. These are not simple fishermen. They are the executioners of the unformed. They cast their nets, huge invisible webs of magic, across the winding waterway. They catch the ignorant, the souls who do not know the spells, who do not have the protection of the gods. To be caught in the net is a fate worse than death. It is to be treated like a fish. It is to be hauled up, gutted, and eaten by the demons of the river. It is the loss of individuality, the dissolution into the mass of the damned. The king sees them in the shadows. Figures with the heads of herons and the hands of knives. They are preparing the net. They see the ferry approaching. They see a soul crossing the water, a prime target. They cast the net. It flies through the air, a web of darkness designed to entrap the spirit. But they have not reckoned with the mast. The king steps to the center of the boat. He embraces the mast. He merges with it. He becomes Babi. He is no longer a frightened human soul. He is the bull of the baboons. He bares his teeth. He lets out the screech that he learned at the horizon. "I am Babi," he roars across the water. "I am the son of Osiris. My strength is the strength of the Great White One. You cannot catch me. You cannot net me." The magic of Babi is the magic of repulsion. It is aggressive defense. The baboon does not hide from the predator. The baboon attacks. The troop rushes forward, screaming, biting, overwhelming the threat. By invoking Babi, the king turns the ferry into a warship. The net hits the boat, but it does not hold. The mast tears through it. The sheer force of the god's virility shreds the trap of the fishermen. The fisherman spell, in the Coffin Texts, spell 473, is explicit about this. The deceased mocks the fishermen. He tells them he knows the names of their nets, the names of their ropes, the names of their hooks. He dismantles their power with knowledge. But the physical force that backs up this knowledge is Babi. He is the muscle behind the spell. He is the one who says, "If you touch this boat, you touch the bull, and the bull bites." The ferry moves on, leaving the shredded nets behind. The water becomes calmer, but deeper. We are now in the Rosatau, the mouth of the passages. This is the deepest part of the Duat, the place where Osiris is buried. The water here is heavy with the sorrow of the god. It is the Nun, the primeval ocean, leaking into the world. Babi's role as the mast takes on a new dimension here. He is the connection to the deep. In the wild, baboons are creatures of the earth, but they are also excellent climbers. They connect the ground to the high rocks. Here, Babi connects the hull, the deep underworld, to the sail, the sky. He is the axis mundi of the boat, and there is a sexual alchemy occurring on this voyage. The boat is the female element, the vessel, the womb. The mast is the male element, the phallus, the generator. Together, they create a self-sustaining ecosystem of rebirth. The king is safe inside this union. He is being gestated as he travels. The crossing of the Winding Waterway is a period of incubation. As the ferry glides through the darkness, the king notices that the stars in the water are not reflections. They are the souls of the blessed, the Aku, floating in the current. They have already made the crossing. They shine with a cold white light. This is the color of Babi's fur. The Great White One is a title that links the baboon to the stars. The ancient Egyptians looked at the Milky Way and saw a river, but they also saw a troop of stars. The baboons were sometimes called the stars of the northern sky, the ones that never set, the ones that are always awake. Babi is their leader. He is steering the ferry toward the imperishable ones. The ferryman, Mahaf, remains silent now. He has seen the power of the passenger. He respects the mast. He knows that he is not ferrying a shade. He is ferrying a peer of the gods. The boat creaks, a sound that the texts say is the voice of the god Aker, the earth lion. The entire vessel is a living mythology. But Babi is not just a protector. He is also a judge of the water. Baboons are notoriously fastidious. They groom each other constantly, picking out impurities. In the spiritual sense, Babi grooms the soul. As the ferry moves, Babi inspects the king. Is there any impurity attached to him? Is there any mud of the river clinging to his ka? If there is, Babi's nature turns perilous. He hates corruption. He hates the rot of the grave. Spells describe Babi living on the liver of the enemies. This is a gruesome image, but it speaks to his role as a disposal system for chaos. If a demon manages to board the boat, Babi does not just fight it, he eats it. He consumes the impurity. He is the digestive tract of the underworld, processing the waste so that the holy places remain clean. The ferry approaches a region of turbulence. The waters churn. This is the location of the Apophis Shoal, the sandbank where the great serpent tries to ground the solar boat. The ferry of the soul must also pass this danger. The water boils. The serpent's coils create whirlpools designed to suck the vessel down into the abyss. Here, the mast must hold. If the mast snaps, the boat loses its power, broaches to the waves, and capsizes. The king clutches the mast. He feels the heat radiating from it. He chants the spells of stability. The jed is raised. The mast is firm. Babi stands tall. Babi does not yield to the serpent. The baboon and the snake are ancient enemies. In the wild, baboons will mob a snake, tearing it apart. In the myth, Babi snarls at the water. His red eyes pierce the darkness, challenging the chaos beneath the hull. The sheer intensity of his life force acts as a repulsive field against the anti-life of the serpent. The boat shudders, leans, but rights itself. The mast holds. The shore of the farther side begins to appear. It is not like the shore they left. It glows with a faint, ruddy light. This is the Akhet, the horizon of the rebirth. But it is also the location of the lake of fire. The transition from water to fire is imminent. Mahaf steers the boat into the shallows. The keel scrapes against the sand of the afterlife. The sound is harsh, final. The king steps off the boat. He turns back to thank the ferryman, but the boat is already drifting away, dissolving back into the mist. The mast, the great phallus of Babi, fades from view, its job done. It has delivered the seed to the fertile ground. But Babi has not left. He has merely changed position. He has moved from the center of the boat to the corners of the destination. As the king walks up the beach, the sand hot beneath his feet, he sees 4 shapes sitting in the distance. They are hunched. They are waiting. They are the 4 baboons who sit at the corners of the lake of fire. The water journey was a test of courage and knowledge. The fire journey will be a test of purity. The water washes the outside. The fire burns the inside. And Babi, the master of the furnace, is waiting to see what the king is made of. The Winding Waterway is behind us. The silence of the river is replaced by a low, roaring sound. It is the sound of flames. It is the sound of the Rosatau, the necropolis of the gods. Here, the laws of physics are replaced by the laws of moral consequence, and Babi is the warden. The king adjusts his kilt. He recites the spell for not dying a second time. He knows that the water was dangerous, but the fire is absolute. He walks toward the red glow, toward the 4 apes who control the thermostat of hell. He knows that to pass them, he must not show fear, for baboons can smell fear, and Babi eats the fearful. This is the reality of the Egyptian afterlife. It is not a place of rest. It is a place of rigorous, terrifying work. And the tools of this work are the gods themselves. Babi was the bolt. Babi was the mast. Now, Babi will be the fire. The transformation is seamless. The god is a fluid force, taking whatever shape is necessary to test and protect the soul. As the king steps into the circle of heat, the baboons turn their heads. Their eyes are not the eyes of animals. They are the eyes of judges. They open their mouths, and for a moment, the king fears they will scream as they did at the dawn. But they do not scream. They speak. "Truth," they say. "Do you bring truth?" The test of the lake begins. The mast is gone. The furnace awaits. The king stands alone before the bull of the baboons, stripped of his boat, stripped of his crew. He has only his heart. and Babi is very, very hungry for hearts that are heavy with lies. But that is the trial of the next hour. For now, the river is crossed. The net is empty. The ferryman has been paid in knowledge, and the mast of Babi stands triumphant in the memory of the waters, the upright pillar that refused to bow to the deep. The water of the Winding Waterway recedes into the mist behind the traveler. The damp, clinging cold of the river crossing is replaced by a sensation that is initially comforting, but quickly escalates into an overwhelming, dry intensity. It is heat. But this is not the heat of the noon sun in the harvest fields of the living. It is a subterranean heat, a radiation that seems to come not from a single source, but from the very walls of the world. The air begins to shimmer. The scent of ozone and sulfur fills the nostrils, mixed with a strange, sweet underlying aroma. The smell of roasting meat, the smell of sacrifice. We have arrived at the Rosatau. This name, mouth of the passages, whispers of secrets buried deep within the necropolis. It is the spiritual center of the underworld, the gateway to the hidden chamber of Osiris. But before one can stand before the king of the dead, one must pass through the refinery of the gods. One must face the Shi-en-Khonsu, the lake of fire. In the geography of the Book of the Dead, specifically within the terrifying imagery of Spell 126, this lake is not a metaphorical concept. It is a physical barrier of liquid flame. It glows with a sullen red light that illuminates the cavernous darkness of the Duat. The flames do not flicker randomly. They roar with a rhythmic, breathing sound. And as the deceased king approaches the shores of this inferno, he realizes that the sound is not just fire. It is a voice. It is the chattering, screeching, howling language of the baboons. Sitting at the four corners of this rectangular lake, or sometimes perched on the glowing prow of the fireboat, are four massive baboons. They are the wardens of the lake. They are the children of the fire. And their leader, the one who embodies the collective fury and hunger of the flame, is Babi. Here, Babi sheds the guise of the mast and the bolt. He assumes a form that is perhaps his most ancient and terrifying, the red god. In Egyptian art, red is the color of Desher, chaos, violence, and life force. It is the color of blood and fire. Babi's fur is often depicted as white or gray, but his skin, his face, and his posterior are a brilliant, aggressive red. In the glow of the lake of fire, he becomes invisible and omnipresent, a creature made of the very element he guards. The traveler stands at the edge of the heat. The baboons turn their dog-like muzzles toward him. Their eyes reflect the burning lake. They are not mindless beasts. They are the strictest judges in the entire Egyptian pantheon. They are the truth speakers. Hail to you, 4 baboons who sit in the prow of the boat of Ra, the deceased calls out, reciting the ancient formula. You who convey truth to the Lord of all, who judge the poor and the rich, who propitiate the gods with the breath of your mouths. The baboons do not attack immediately. They wait. They are assessing the impurity of the soul. The ancient Egyptians believed that life on earth covered the soul in a layer of grime. The lies, the mistakes, the small cruelties of existence. This grime is flammable. If a soul enters the lake of fire, while still covered in this moral filth, they will catch fire. They will burn. But if they are pure, if they have lived by Ma'at, the fire will not burn them. It will feed them. This is the central paradox of Babi's realm. The fire is dual. To the Mut, the dead who are damned, the lake is a place of total annihilation. It is the second death. This was the ultimate fear of every Egyptian. Not the stopping of the heart, but the destruction of the essence so completely that one ceases to exist in any form. Babi is the executioner who oversees this deletion. He watches as the unworthy are cast into the pits. He watches as their shadows curl up and vanish in the heat. He screams in triumph as chaos is burned out of the universe. But to the Ach, the transfigured spirit, the lake is a place of nourishment. The text says, "The bet bread of the baboons is my bet bread. The drink of the baboons is my drink." What do the baboons eat? They eat the fire. They consume the flames and turn them into power. For the righteous soul, the lake of fire becomes a bath of cool water or a field of barley. They drink the fire and become luminous. They become spirit through the alchemy of Babi's furnace. Babi, therefore, is the great alchemist. He manages the transition from biological matter to spiritual light. He demands that the traveler strip away all pretenses. You cannot hide your sins in the fire. The fire reveals everything. The baboons demand a confession of absolute truth. "I have not committed evil," the king asserts. "I have not stolen. I have not killed." Babi listens. He tilts his head. If he detects a lie, the jaw snaps. The baboon's bite is legendary for a reason. In the wild, a baboon can shear through bone. In the myth, Babi shears through the integrity of the soul. He is the eater of the unrighteous. There are vignettes in the funerary papyri that show the enemies of Ra being decapitated, their bodies thrown into cauldrons. Presiding over these cauldrons are the baboons. They are the cooks of the afterlife, preparing the food of the gods, which consists of the destroyed enemies of order. But let us look deeper into Babi's title here, eldest son of Osiris. This is a strange and profound lineage given in the Coffin Texts. Osiris is the king of the dead, the mummy, the static ruler. How can the wild, frantic, screaming baboon be his eldest son? The answer lies in the concept of vindication. Osiris was murdered by Set. He was passive in his own death. He needed an avenger. Horus is the most famous son, the falcon who fights Set. But Babi represents the primal rage of the murdered king. He is the manifestation of Osiris's hidden desire for justice, not the legal justice of the court, but the violent justice of the blood feud. Babi is the bull of the West being the land of the dead. By calling Babi his son, Osiris lays claim to the untamable force of nature. It creates a balance. The stillness of the mummy is protected by the hyperactivity of the baboon. The silence of the tomb is guarded by the screech of the ape. The eldest son implies that this aggression is the firstborn defense of the realm. Before wisdom, Thoth/Horus can rule. Violence, Babi must clear the perimeter. In the Lake of Fire, Babi is also testing the virility of the soul in a metaphysical sense. Just as he tested the bolt of the sky, here he tests the heat of the spirit. A cold soul, a weak soul, cannot survive eternity. Eternity requires energy. The fire of the lake provides that energy. The deceased prays to Babi, "Give me your fire. Let me warm myself by your heat." This exchange is critical. The soul needs Babi's fire to avoid the coldness of the grave. Babi shares his nature. He grants the deceased the red cloth, the insignia of the throat. These are symbols of power and breath. The throat is the channel of life. The red cloth is the wrapping of vitality. Babi wraps the soul in a cloak of fire that protects it from the demons of the dark. The terror of the Rosatau is palpable. The ground is hot to the touch. The walls of the cavern glow, and the baboons are everywhere. They are not just at the corners, they are the atmosphere. They chatter among themselves, discussing the merits of the arriving souls. "Look at this one," they seem to say. "He is weak, he is fearful. Shall we eat him?" The king must stand his ground. He must use the magic of Heka to command their respect. "I am one of you," he declares. "I am the baboon who sits in the flame. My heat is your heat." By identifying with Babi again, the king becomes fireproof. He transforms from fuel into flame. This transformation is physical. The Egyptian texts speak of the opals and turquoise of the body being hardened in the fire. The flesh of the god is gold. The bones are silver. The hair is lapis lazuli. The lake of fire is the forge where this transmutation happens. Babi is the smith. He hammers the soul with heat until the mortal dross falls away, and only the imperishable god body remains. There is a fascinating connection here to the Eye of Ra. The eye is the solar power, often depicted as a goddess, Sekhmet, Hathor. But the eye is also fire. Babi, as the companion of the eye, knows how to handle it. He is the keeper of the eye. In some myths, the baboons catch the sun in a net at dawn and hoist it into the sky. Here, in the underworld, they catch the fire of the sun as it passes through the earth and store it in the lake. The lake of fire is essentially a battery of solar energy buried in the dark. When Ra passes through the Duat in his night boat, the baboons of the lake scream in joy. They greet the sun in the underworld, just as they greeted him on the horizon. The fire of the lake surges up to meet the fire of the sunboat. It is a reunion of energies. For a brief hour, the darkness of the Rosatau is banished, and the cavern shines like noon. The souls who are bathing in the lake raise their hands in the Henu gesture, just like the living baboons. They rejoice. But then the boat passes. The darkness returns. The red glow settles back over the lake, and Babi resumes his watch. The second death remains the lingering threat. The Egyptians were terrified of walking upside down or eating their own excrement, symbols of total disorientation and loss of order. Babi ensures that those who suffer the second death are completely erased. There is no pity in the Rosatau. There is only the binary logic of the flame. If you are gold, you shine. If you are wood, you burn. Babi's role as the Eater of the Entrails begins to foreshadow the next great trial, the Judgment Hall. But here in the lake, the consumption is elemental. It is about energy transfer. The baboons eat the shadows of the damned to fuel their own immortality. It is a grim ecology. The gods survive on the destruction of chaos. Babi is the mouth that keeps the system clean. There is also a sonic component to this torture. The roaring of the lake is described as the wailing of the damned mixed with the howling of the flames. Babi contributes his voice to this choir. He is the bull of the roarers. His voice can shatter stone. For the righteous, this sound is a protective wall, a sonic barrier that keeps the monsters of the deep at bay. For the wicked, it is the last sound they ever hear, the screech of the god as he descends to feast. As the king steps out of the lake, he is changed. He is glowing. His skin is smoking, not with burning flesh, but with the steam of purification. He has been dipped in the font of Babi. He has been baptized in fire. The fear of death has been burned out of him. He now possesses the hot breath of the baboon. He looks back at the 4 wardens. They nod. They close their jaws. The test is passed. The gate of the Rosatau opens. Beyond it lies the Hall of the Two Truths. Beyond it lies the scale, the feather, and the greatest fear of all. Babi's work is not done. He does not stay behind at the lake. He moves with the soul. He shifts his shape again. He becomes something darker, more intimate, more terrifyingly precise. He moves from the elemental fire to the anatomical precision of the executioner's block. He is going to the judgment, and he is hungry. The heat of the Rosatau fades, replaced by the cool, sterile air of the Hall of Ma'at. But the king can still feel the phantom heat of the lake on his skin. He knows that he owes his survival to the Red God. He knows that without the aggression of Babi, he would have been consumed. He walks forward, the bolt and the mast and the fire now integrated into his very being. He is ready to face Osiris. But is he ready to face the Eater? The roar of the lake of fire fades into a dull, subsonic hum behind the traveler. The searing heat that tested the skin and hardened the bones is replaced by a chill that is far more terrifying because it is silent. We have stepped out of the elemental forge and into the sterile, absolute quiet of the Hall of the Two Truths. This is the inner sanctum of the Duat, the courtroom of Osiris, where the moral weight of a lifetime is measured against a single ostrich feather. The air here is still, smelling of ancient dust, myrrh, and the cold sweat of 1,000,000 souls who have stood in this exact spot, trembling. At the far end of the vast pillared hall sits Osiris, the mummified king, green-skinned and impassive. Around him are the 42 judges, the assessors of Ma'at, each waiting to hear the denial of a specific sin. In the center stands the great balance, the mechanical conscience of the universe. Anubis, the jackal-headed guardian of the cemetery, adjusts the plummet, checking the calibration. Thoth, the ibis-headed scribe, stands ready with his palette and reed pen to record the verdict. And waiting in the shadows, lurking beneath the golden scale, are the executioners. Most know of Ammit, the devourer, the hybrid beast with the head of a crocodile, the forequarters of a lion, and the hindquarters of a hippo. She waits for the heart, but she is not alone. There is another presence here, a presence that does not wait for the seat of the intellect, but for the seat of the fear. It is Babi. In the Hall of Judgment, Babi is known by his most gruesome epithet, the Eater of Entrails. While Ammit destroys the individual identity, the EB, Babi destroys the visceral reality of the being. To the ancient Egyptians, the entrails, the liver, the lungs, the stomach, the intestines were not just biological plumbing. They were the deity, the physical housing of the emotions, the instincts, and the breath of life. They were so important that they were preserved separately in canopic jars, guarded by the 4 sons of Horus. But here, in the final tribunal, there are no jars to protect them. There is only Babi. He sits near the balance, perhaps in the shadow of the pillar, his red fur bristling in the gloom. He is not asleep. His eyes, the red eyes of the house of mourning, are fixed on the abdomen of the deceased. He can smell the fear in the gut. He knows that the stomach is where terror lives. When a human being is afraid, their bowels turn to water, their stomach knots. Babi feeds on this knot. He is the predator of anxiety. The Book of the Dead, in the terrifying rubrics of Spell 125, gives instructions on how to ward him off. The deceased must address him directly. Deliver me from Babi, who lives on the entrails of the mighty on that day of the great reckoning. Why the mighty? Because even the strong fall here. Even kings, who commanded armies and built temples, can be hollowed out by the Baboon God if their hearts are found heavy. Babi represents the anti-canopic force. The canopic jars preserve. Babi consumes. If the heart is heavy, if the scales tip against Ma'at, the protection of the tomb is revoked. The magic that held the body together dissolves. Amit steps forward to take the heart, ending the soul's memory and personality. But Babi's work is more visceral. He steps forward to tear open the body and devour the wet, living machinery of existence. He eats the liver, the source of blood. He eats the lungs, the source of breath. He leaves the condemned not just dead, but empty. A husk, a hollow shell that can never again hold the breath of Ra. This is the psychological horror of the Judgment Hall. It is not just a legal proceeding, it is a predation event. The soul is the prey. The gods are the hunters. And Babi is the alpha predator who ensures that nothing of the Isfet, chaos/evil, remains to pollute the afterlife. He is the garbage disposal of the moral universe. The traveler stands before the scale. He recites the negative confession. I have not stolen. I have not killed. I have not caused pain. As he speaks, he watches the baboon. Babi is agitated. He paces. He grunts. He is the bull of the tribunal. His aggression is a test in itself. Can you hold your nerve while a monster looks at your stomach? Can you speak the truth when the Eater of Entrails is baring his teeth at you? This agitation is key to Babi's function. He is the enforcer of the court. Thoth provides the wisdom. Osiris provides the authority. Ma'at provides the standard. But law is meaningless without the capacity for violence to enforce it. Babi is that violence. He is the constitutional aggression of the cosmos. He ensures that the verdict is final. No one argues with Babi. No one appeals his sentence. Once he starts eating, the trial is over. In some papyri, Babi is depicted guarding the lake of fire right next to the hall, linking the two locations. He brings the heat of the lake into the cool courtroom. He reminds the deceased that judgment is not a cold, abstract process. It is a hot, bloody business. He is the lord of the gore. But what if the heart is light? What if the feather of Ma'at balances perfectly with the conscience of the deceased? Then, the nature of Babi flips instantly. The aggression that was directed at the traveler is now directed for the traveler. The Eater of Entrails becomes the guardian of the vitals. He steps back. he lowers his head. He allows the soul to pass. And more than that, he imparts a blessing of virility. For the righteous, Babi ensures that their internal organs will function eternally. He guarantees that their spectral stomach will be able to digest the food of the gods. He guarantees that their spectral liver will produce the blood of immortality. He becomes the patron of the internal ecosystem. My liver is the liver of Babi, the justified soul can say. My strength is the strength of the bull. This transition from threat to ally is instantaneous. It reflects the baboon's social nature. In a troop, the alpha male is a terror to outsiders and a tyrant to subordinates, but he is the absolute defender of the family. Once you are accepted into the family of Osiris, Babi becomes your alpha. He will rip apart any demon that tries to touch your entrails. He becomes the ultimate insurance policy against spiritual disembowelment. There is a deeper, more esoteric layer to Babi's presence here. He is sometimes called the firstborn of Osiris. In the context of the Judgment Hall, this title emphasizes his role as the protector of his father's legacy. Osiris was dismembered by Set. His body was scattered. Babi is the anti-dismemberment. He is the one who holds the pieces together by threatening to tear apart anyone else. He is the shadow of Set's violence, turned to the service of Osiris. The ancient Egyptians also associated Babi with the redness of the dawn and the redness of blood. In the clinical whiteness of the hall, this splash of red is jarring. It is a reminder of life. The Hall of Judgment can be a sterile place, a place of bureaucracy and lists. Babi brings the chaotic, messy energy of life into the room. He reminds the gods that the soul standing before them is not just a name on a papyrus. It is a living, breathing, feeling creature. He represents the biological imperative to survive judgment. As the verdict is read, true of voice, Thoth records it. Anubis releases the scale. Amit retreats, hungry and disappointed. And Babi gives a final, chattering screech. It is not a scream of hunger this time. It is a scream of validation. It is the sound of the bolt sliding back on the final door. The king moves past the balance, past the devourers, and toward the throne of Osiris. He has kept his heart. He has kept his entrails. He is whole. But as he leaves the hall, he notices a tension between the scribes and the executioners. He notices a look passed between Thoth and Babi. It is a look of ancient rivalry. The cool, intellectual ibis and the hot, instinctual baboon do not always agree. They are the two sides of the Egyptian mind, the logical and the primal. And while they work together in the Hall of Judgment, their relationship is fraught with conflict. The myth of their rivalry is one of the strange, obscure tales of the conflict of the sacred apes. The king has survived the judgment of the dead, but he is now entering the society of the gods. And the society of the gods is not a peaceful tea party. It is a complex hierarchy of power, magic, and dominance. Babi does not leave the narrative here. He follows. He is the shadow that walks behind the wise men. He is the disruption that tests the order. We leave the Hall of the Two Truths, the smell of fear fading behind us. We enter the field of reeds, the paradise of the blessed. But paradise needs guards, and paradise needs a balance between the library and the jungle. The relationship between Babi and Thoth, the two baboon gods, is about to take center stage. For even in heaven, there is politics. and when the politics involves the god of wisdom and the god of virility, the results are explosive. The Eater of Entrails has been satisfied with the verdict, but the bull of the Baboons is still restless. He remembers an old slight. He remembers a theft. And as the eternal day dawns in the west, Babi turns his red eyes toward the moon. The conflict of the sacred apes is about to begin. The silence of the judgment hall is left behind. The terror of the entrails has been quieted. But as the soul moves deeper into the celestial hierarchy, stepping onto the silver plains of the moon and the golden bark of the sun, it encounters a strange and persistent duality. In the Egyptian mind, nothing exists without its opposite. Order implies chaos. Light implies shadow. And wisdom implies madness. We have seen Babi as the solitary bull, the screaming alpha, the warden of the fire. But Babi is not the only ape in the pantheon. There is another, a figure of cool intellect, of precise measurement, of silent writing. This is Thoth, the lord of Hermopolis, the scribe of the gods. And Thoth, too, wears the mask of the baboon. Why? Why would the god of supreme intelligence choose the same vessel as the god of supreme aggression? To the modern eye, it seems a contradiction. To the ancient Egyptian, it was a perfect symmetry. The baboon is a creature of twilight. It greets the sun, Babi, but it is also active at night, under the moon, Thoth. It is a creature that can sit in meditation like a statue for hours, hands on knees, resembling a wise scribe. This is the aspect of Thoth, the Istin, the arbiter, the one who thinks. But the moment that meditation is broken, the baboon becomes a shrieking whirlwind of teeth and muscle. This is the aspect of Babi, the Baboon, the one who acts. The relationship between these two sacred apes is not one of brotherhood. It is one of tension. It is the eternal conflict between the cortex and the amygdala, between the library and the jungle. And in the divine courts, this tension often explodes into open conflict. The papyrus Jumulhak, a late religious text that preserves ancient myths, records a fascinating and obscure narrative of this rivalry. The setting is the court of Ra, the high council where the gods deliberate on the fate of the cosmos. Babi enters not as a guard but as an accuser. He is the bull of the baboons, arrogant, chest-thumping, demanding to be heard. He points a finger at Thoth. He accuses the Lord of Wisdom of theft, of hiding the truth, of manipulating the divine records for his own obscure ends. The nature of the accusation is often vague in the texts, hinting at a deep, primordial distrust. Babi represents the raw truth of the body. Thoth represents the constructed truth of the word. Babi hates secrets. He hates the subtle manipulations of magic. He screams that Thoth is a deceiver, a magician of lies. Thoth does not scream back. He does not bare his teeth. He is the silver ape. He listens. He waits. And then he acts with the terrifying precision of the intellectual. He does not use a spear. He uses a spell. He weaves a heka of such complexity that Babi cannot bite through it. The punishment Thoth inflicts on Babi is symbolic and devastating. He strikes Babi's phallus. He renders the bull of the baboons impotent. He takes away the bolt, the mast, the very source of Babi's power. Babi falls silent. He wanders the courts, shamed, unable to function, unable to be the alpha. The screeching stops. The aggression drains away. This moment in the myth is crucial. It represents the triumph of mind over matter. It is the Egyptian way of saying that intellect must control libido. If the body, Babi, is allowed to rampage unchecked, it will destroy the social order. It must be disciplined by the mind, Thoth. The limpness of Babi is the state of raw energy neutralized by civilization. But the story does not end there. The cosmos cannot survive with a neutered Babi. Ra looks down from his throne and sees that the bolt of the doors is broken. He sees that the mast of the ferry has collapsed. Without Babi's virility, the sun cannot be reborn. Without the aggressive drive of the red ape, the passive wisdom of the silver ape cannot move the boat. Thoth can chart the course, but he cannot row the ship against the current of Apophis. So, Ra orders a reconciliation. Thoth must heal Babi. He must restore the power he took away. But the restoration comes with conditions. Babi must accept Thoth's guidance. The libido must serve the intellect. The bull must pull the plow of wisdom. Thoth recites the healing spell. He spits on the wound, a gesture of magical restoration. Babi's power returns. The bolt slides back into place. The mast rises. But now, the two apes stand together on the prow of the solar bark. They are no longer rivals. They are a binary system. Thoth stands on the left, holding the scroll, reading the stars, calculating the navigation. Babi stands on the right, holding the spear, watching the water, ready to kill the monsters that Thoth identifies. They are the perfect team. The scribe identifies the threat. The warrior eliminates it. This is the ma'at of the baboon, the balance of thought and action. We see this duality reflected in the iconography of the temples. In the great temple of Abu Simbel, carved into the living rock, there is a frieze of baboons greeting the rising sun. Who are they? Are they Babi or Thoth? They are both. They are the souls of the East. They are praising Ra with their voices, Babi, and with their knowledge, Thoth. However, Babi's nature has a darker gravitational pull. While Thoth ascends to the cool, detached realm of the moon, Babi often drifts toward the chaotic orbit of Set. Set, the god of storms, deserts, and foreigners, is the great antagonist of the Osiris myth. He is the murderer, the usurper. And Babi, with his red coat and his red eyes, shares a chromatic affinity with Set. In the later periods of Egyptian history, particularly during the turbulent times of the Hyksos and the Ramesside era, Babi became increasingly identified with the Setian forces. He became Bebon. The name Bebon is a variation, but it carries a sharper edge. Bebon is the lord of the storm. He is the one who howls in the thunder. This association with Set is dangerous. Set is necessary, but he is untrustworthy. By aligning with Set, Babi becomes a god of justified violence that can easily tip over into unjustified slaughter. In the contendings of Horus and Seth, a mythic cycle describing the legal battle for the throne of Egypt, Babi makes a brief but shocking appearance. The Ennead, the Council of Gods, is debating. They are tired. The case has dragged on for 80 years. Babi, bored and irritated by the indecision, stands up and insults Ra himself. He tells the sun god, "Your shrine is empty." It is a blasphemy. It is a statement of ultimate disrespect, implying that Ra is old, weak, and powerless. The gods cover their faces in horror. Ra lies down on his back, sulking, refusing to speak. Who fixes this? Interestingly, it is Hathor, the goddess of joy and sexuality, who exposes herself to Ra, making him laugh and breaking the tension. But Babi's role was the catalyst. He was the rude truth-teller. He was the one who voiced the silent fear of the assembly, that the old order was failing. This incident highlights Babi's role as the divine trickster. He is not a trickster like Loki, who weaves complex webs of deceit. He is a trickster of blunt force. He disrupts the proceedings by being too real, too biological, too aggressive. He shatters the polite facade of the divine bureaucracy. Yet, despite his insults, Babi is never expelled from the boat of Ra. He is too essential. You can punish him, you can silence him, but you cannot exile him. He is the libido of the universe. If you banish Babi, the universe becomes sterile. The crops will not grow. The women will not conceive. The sun will not rise. The Egyptians understood that Isfet, chaos, was the raw material of Ma'at, order. You don't destroy chaos, you harness it. Babi is harnessed chaos. In the Book of the Dead, there are spells where the deceased claims, "I have swallowed the heart of Babi." This is a claim of supreme courage. To swallow the heart of the Baboon God is to digest his aggression and make it your own. It is to say, "I have the rage of the beast, but I hold it inside my human chest." There is also a fascinating lunar connection that is often overlooked. Thoth is the moon, yes, but Babi is the shadow of the moon. The Egyptians saw the dark patches on the moon's face. To some, this was the hair. To others, it was the face of the baboon. Babi is the dark side of the lunar cycle, the waning moon, the time when the light is being eaten by the shadow. In Hermopolis, the city of Thoth, there were massive catacombs filled with mummified baboons and ibises. These were votive offerings. Pilgrims would buy a mummified ape and offer it to Thoth to ask for healing or wisdom. But beneath the prayers to the gentle scholar, there was always the fear of the wild ape. The priests of Hermopolis knew the secret names of Babi. They knew that if the rituals failed, the silver ape would depart, and the red ape would rampage. The conflict between Babi and Thoth is, in the end, a love story of the cosmos. It is the friction that creates heat. It is the argument that leads to truth. Thoth writes the laws. Babi enforces them. Thoth knows the path. Babi clears the path. As the soul prepares to leave the company of the gods and return to the silence of the tomb, it carries this lesson. To be a perfect spirit, one must be both a scribe and a warrior. One must have the silver tongue of Thoth and the red phallus of Babi. One must be able to write the spell and scream the war cry. The tension in the hall of the gods settles. Thoth returns to his writing. Babi returns to his watch. The balance is restored. But the king, now fully initiated into the mysteries of the sacred apes, knows that the peace is temporary. The sun will set again. The dark will return. And when it does, the scribe will put down his pen, and the bull will bare his teeth. We are nearing the end of our journey through the anatomy of the Baboon God. We have seen him as the dawn herald, the gate bolt, the fairy mast, the fire warden, the entrail eater, and the divine rival. But there is one final aspect of Babi that touches the world of the living most directly. It is his legacy in the magic of the earth. It is the power he leaves behind in the amulets, the statues, and the protective spells of the common people. For while the gods argue in heaven, the people on the banks of the Nile need protection from the scorpions in the sand and the snakes in the roof. They need a god who is not too high to bite a demon. They need the magic of the Babi. And this magic is the final guard that stands over the sleeping body, waiting for the dawn. The celestial journey is complete. The sun has risen, the gates have opened, the river has been crossed, the fire has been endured, and the judgment has been rendered. But the story of the god does not end in the high heavens. For the ancient Egyptian, the divine was not a distant abstraction locked away in the sky. It was a tangible, terrifying, and necessary presence in the mud and dust of the earth. The gods lived in the temples, yes, but they also lived in the amulets around the neck of a child, in the statues guarding the bedroom, and in the shadows of the tomb where the body lay sleeping. Babi, the bull of the baboons, returns now from the court of Thoth to the world of men. His final role is perhaps his most intimate, the guardian of the flesh, while the Ba, soul, flies to the stars to mingle with the imperishable ones. The Khat, the physical corpse, remains behind. It is wrapped in linen, soaked in resin, and hidden in the dark. But the dark is full of enemies. The Egyptians were obsessed with the integrity of the body. They knew that decay was a form of chaos. They knew that worms, beetles, and snakes, the eaters of the flesh, were agents of Isfet. They sought to undo the work of the embalmer. To protect the mummy, one needed a guard who was more vicious than the vermin. One needed a predator who could hunt in the absolute darkness of the sarcophagus. This is the domain of Babi's earthly magic. In the late period, and even back into the Middle Kingdom, we find evidence of Babi's invocation in apotropaic magic, magic designed to turn away evil. The logic is the logic of the alpha predator. To scare away a monster, you must invite a bigger monster into your house. Babi is that bigger monster. The tipi of Horus, or the magical stelae of Horus on the crocodiles, are among the most famous magical objects of ancient Egypt. They depict the child Horus standing fearlessly on beasts, strangling snakes and scorpions in his hands. Towering above him, often serving as the protective mask or the ultimate authority, is the face of the best Pantheos, or the aggressive head of the baboon. Babi provides the raw force that allows the child to triumph over the venom. Are fast enough to dodge the strike. Are fast enough to dodge the strike. Strong enough to grab the serpent behind the head, and brutal enough to tear it apart. The Egyptians watched this. They saw the baboon fearlessly engaging the symbol of Apophis. They reasoned that if the baboon could kill the cobra in the desert, the spirit of the baboon, Babi, could kill the demons of the underworld. Spells from the Metternich. Stella invoke this power. The magician recites, "Flow out, poison, come forth, venom. Babi commands you." The poison is treated as a living entity, an intruder that has violated the boundaries of the body. Babi, the god of boundaries, the bolt, orders the intruder to leave. He screams at the blood to purify itself. But Babi's protection extends beyond snakebite. It goes to the very essence of virility and life force. We have spoken of his phallus as the bolt of heaven, but in the realm of earthly magic, it becomes a symbol of user, power. Amulets in the shape of baboons, or specifically focusing on the genital potency of the god, were not objects of obscenity. They were batteries. Death is a loss of heat. It is a loss of the ability to generate. To wear an amulet of Babi was to strap a generator of life force to your body. It was a plea for heat. It was a way of saying to the universe, I am still fertile. I am still capable of creation. Do not take me yet. For the dead, these amulets were placed within the wrappings to ensure that the sexual power of the deceased, the ability to be reborn, was not stolen by the thieves of the heart. In the Greco-Roman period, as the dynasties of the pharaohs gave way to the rule of the Ptolemies and eventually the Caesars, the image of Babi began to shift. The Greeks, with their different sensibilities, struggled to understand the red god. They saw his aggression, his sexuality, and his connection to Set, and they were frightened. They called him Baboon. To the Greek mind, Baboon was a Typhonian figure, a creature of the storm, a demon of unrestrained impulse. The subtle theological balance of the eldest son of Osiris was lost in translation. Baboon became a figure of fear, a bogeyman who haunted the nightmares of the uninitiated. He was the shaker, the one who caused earthquakes and madness. Yet, even in this demonized form, the magic persisted. In the Greek magical papyri, a collection of spells from Roman Egypt, we still find the name of Baboon/Babi invoked in love spells and curses. If you wanted to make someone fall in love with you with an uncontrollable passion, you called upon Baboon. If you wanted to strike your enemy with impotence, you called upon the one who controlled the bolt. The high theology had faded, but the visceral magic remained. The god had become a ghost, but the ghost still had teeth. There is a tragedy in this evolution. Babi, the herald of the sun, the opener of the sky, became a shadow in the margins of magical books. The great white one was forgotten, replaced by the red demon. But this is the fate of all old gods. As the lights of the temples go out, they retreat into the folklore and the superstitions of the people. But let us return to the height of his power, to the festivals of the new kingdom. Imagine the scene at Hermopolis or Memphis during the Feast of the Baboon. The priests bring out the statue of the god. It is made of alabaster, white and pure, sitting in the squatting position, hands on knees. The eyes are inlaid with rock crystal and carnelian. The statue is heavy, solid, immovable. Crowds gather. They do not cheer, they chant. They offer baskets of fruit, nuts, and beer. They bring their sick children. They bring their legal disputes. They believe that the baby in the statue can hear them. They believe that his hearing ear is open. In the courtyards of the temples, living baboons were kept as sacred animals. These were the living images of the god. They were pampered, fed the finest food, and adorned with jewelry. But they were wild animals. They would bite. They would scream. And the priests accepted this. They did not try to domesticate the god. They understood that the danger was the point. You cannot have a safe protector. A safe protector is weak. You want a dangerous protector who is on your side. This is the ultimate legacy of Babi, the necessity of the monster. Civilization, Ma'at, is fragile. It is a small island of order in a vast ocean of chaos. To protect it, you need walls. You need laws. But walls and laws are passive. Eventually, the enemy will climb the wall. Eventually, the criminal will break the law. When that happens, you need the active defense. You need the aggression that matches the aggression of the enemy. Babi is that necessary aggression. He is the monster that the gods keep on a leash. He is the one who does the dirty work of the cosmos. He eats the entrails so Osiris can keep his hands clean. He burns the damned so Ra can shine on the blessed. He holds the heavy, grinding weight of the sky gates so the sun can float effortlessly. He is the shadow that defines the light. Without the red darkness of Babi, the white light of Thoth would have no depth. Without the screaming chaos of the baboon, the silence of the mummy would be empty, not pregnant with life. As we stand at the end of this saga, looking back at the long history of the Nile, the figure of the Baboon God looms large. He is not the most famous of the gods. He does not have the golden mask of Tutankhamun or the great pyramid of Khufu, but he is everywhere. He is in the ink of the scribe, for the baboon is the patron of writing equipment. He is in the scale of the judge. He is in the prow of the boat. He is in the rising sun. The modern world has largely forgotten Babi. We see baboons in zoos, and we laugh at their antics, their colorful behinds, their human-like fingers. We do not see the bull of the horizon. We do not hear the prayer in their morning cry. But the archetype remains. The concept of the primal guardian, the holy beast, lives on in our collective unconscious. We still yearn for a force that is strong enough to open the doors that are locked against us. We still fear the judgment of our own entrails. We still need the bolt to be drawn. Close your eyes one last time. Listen to the sound of the ancient desert. The night is ending. The stars are fading one by one, swallowed by the graying light of the east. The air is cold. The silence is absolute. And then, from the high cliffs, it begins. A low grunt, a shuffle of heavy fur, a sharp intake of breath. The alpha rises. He stands on two legs, exposing his chest to the coming fire. He lifts his hands. The palms are open. The fingers are spread. He sees the gold. He sees the god. He sees the victory of another day. And he screams. It is a scream that shatters the dark. It is a scream that wakes the world. It is the voice of Babi, the bull of the baboons, the keeper of the gate, the first worshipper. The sun has risen. The bolt is drawn. The way is open. And as long as the sun rises, the baboon will be there to greet it. Thank you for journeying with me into the deep red heart of the Egyptian underworld. If you found value in this exploration of the ancient shadows, and if you wish to walk further down the paths of the forgotten gods, please leave a like and subscribe to Hearths of Myths. May your heart be light, may your bolt be strong, and may the sun always find an opening in your sky. Sleep well.